Prager, and I have been away for a week. My wife and I were in Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic, which is now, I think I have, pretty much. I've one European country I haven't been to, Macedonia. Slovakia was the other one, and I had a great time there. I went to give speeches. Conservatives in Hungary and the Czech Republic invited me, particularly in Hungary. And let me begin with a very sobering thought, one I don't think I've ever expressed before because I don't think I ever felt before. You have to understand how often I have been abroad. I have been abroad every single year of my life since I was 20, with the exception of last year, COVID, where it was just not possible. There was no place to go to. It's not easy to travel even now. Maybe I'll tell you later about getting my COVID test, being tested in the Czech Republic, what that was like. These adventures are memorable. But the opening thought is that in leaving Hungary and coming to the United States for the first time, this is my 5th trip to Hungary. So I have a real measuring stick. I was in Hungary twice when it was communist, twice when it was not communist, and now. If you would have told me when I was in my 20s visiting communist Hungary, one day you will think that Hungary is a freer country than America, I would have thought that you were a communist. Because I would have thought, you're just pro-communist and you have this sick view of the freedoms that communism squelches. But let's say the person, no, I know communism has no freedom. That's why I said one day it will happen. And I would have said, well, it's a very strange prediction. Have a great day. I don't claim that I have always been right in anything I have said, but I do claim that I never exaggerate. So when I tell you that I feel that I left a freer country for a less free country, in leaving Hungary and coming to this country, I am not exaggerating. I may be wrong. In fact, let me say, I hope I'm wrong. But that is the sense that I have. I think it's objectively true. I don't think that you lose your job and your reputation in Hungary. I spoke to a lot of Hungarians. I don't think you lose your job and reputation in Hungary for saying something that, in that case, the Viktor Orban, who was accused of being a fascist, of course, because there was no conservative who was not accused of being a fascist, correct? Since Stalin called Trotsky a fascist, that is what the left does, and it is all it can do intellectually, is smear people. It has no arguments, it has smears. I read so much against Viktor Orban in the American media, and they don't give any examples of his fascism, of his being a dictator. They just say he is. Tucker Carlson was there. I was with Tucker Carlson. We were the two people, there were 2 Americans that were invited to speak or to give keynote addresses. I gave it on, Thursday. He gave it on Friday, I believe it was. No, I gave it on Friday and he gave it on Saturday. This is what I experienced. Viktor Orban, if you speak out against Viktor Orban, and I purposely asked Hungarians, obviously I don't speak Hungarian. There's a great joke, by the way, about that. I'll tell it to you. I'm not capable of memorizing jokes. Not a gift God gave me others. I'm not complaining. But here's a good one. What language is spoken in heaven? Answer, Hungarian. because it takes an eternity to learn it. Good one. It's a good one. It's not like any other language. I know, don't tell me it's like Finnish. It's not like Finnish. They come from the same roots, but a Finn understands a Hungarian and vice versa as well as I understand a Finn or a Hungarian. Finnish, by the way, is another incredibly difficult language. So I asked them to show me on their phones or on their computers. I said, show me, please, examples of attacks on Viktor Orban here in Hungary. Because you would hear from the left-wing liars, and they are all liars about Viktor Orban, every single one of them. They just lie about him like they lie about every conservative. And they called him fascist and authoritarian and dictator. So in a dictatorial regime, you can't criticize the regime, correct? So they showed me magazine after magazine, pictures of them on the internet, attacking him in the most severe way. One of them, because the anti-Semitic party hates Viktor Orban, just for the record, because he's called anti-Semitic on the basis of nothing except that he attacks George Soros. Nobody attacks George Soros more than I do. George Soros is scum. Okay? If there is human scum, George Soros qualifies for it. And the fact that he is a Jew is completely irrelevant. Trotsky was a Jew. Can you attack Trotsky? I mean, or you're not allowed to attack anybody but white Christians. So they have no basis to say that Viktor Orban is anti-Semitic, none whatsoever. There was a picture on the cover of a Hungarian magazine shown to me of Viktor Orban with payas. Payas are the sidelocks that ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jews wear. To paint him as the tool of the Jews. Get it? The anti-Semite that the left calls him is painted by the real anti-Semites in Hungary as a Jewish tool. Did anything happen to the editors of that magazine? There's another one that shows Viktor Orban in the colors, in the rainbow colors of LGBTQ. Sound like a place that you can't criticize the regime? Now, let's go to the United States of America. You say Black Lives Matter is a hate group. You going to keep your job? Simple as that, right? You probably lose your job if you say men don't give birth. You don't lose your job in Hungary if you say men do give birth. They'll think you're nuts, because you are, but you won't lose your job. It seems to me that there is more freedom at this moment in the country called Hungary than in the United States of America. Coming back to the United States on the hundreds of occasions that I have, it was always a sense of, God, am I lucky? And I don't sense that now. Okay? I never fool myself. My love of America does not trump my love of truth. The left is ruining this country. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. As I said to Hungarians, I had an interview with Hungarian radio last night. I got home and I didn't stop working. So last night, thank God, one of the gifts God did give me is I don't suffer from jet lag. I have to say. It is a tremendous gift. I fully acknowledge it. Anyway, so last night at 11 p.m. Pacific U.S. time, I was being interviewed by Hungarian radio. Hungary is 9 hours ahead of Pacific, so it was 8 a.m. for was that right? 9? No. 9 and 11 is 20. Yeah, 8 a.m. Yep. So as I said to them, they were struck by the fact that I knew a lot about Hungary and its history, and I said to them, Hungary has gone from János Kadar to freedom, and America is moving from freedom to János Kadar. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth. Because wherever the left takes over, you move to János Kádár, communist leader in Hungary in the 1970s. 1-8 Prager 776. None of this is happy, but not any of it should stop you from fighting. Have more to say on that. I'm Dennis Prager. Good to be back. Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins and bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Rovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust him. He is a good and very knowledgeable man. Call Nick at 800-221-7694, 800-221-7694, AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. Not one mistake.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Well, according to the CDC's own documents, right here, Barnstable, or is it Barnstable? Whatever. County, Massachusetts. Outbreak. In all bold. No difference in mean CT values in unvaccinated and vaccinated cases. In fact, the vaccinated cases were 0.4% higher. That's the CDC's own data. That vaccinated Americans in Massachusetts, I'm just reading from the document, in Barnstable County, that the median among vaccinated was N equals 80. I'm not sure what that value represents, but 21.9. Unvaccinated, N equals 65, 21.5. I'm guessing that's how many people they were testing. I need to go look at what the values represent. It says here that risk of infection, reinfection with the Delta variant may be higher compared to the Alpha variant, but only if prior infection is 180 days earlier. It says this, that the Delta variant may cause more severe disease than the Alpha or the ancestral strains. So they're already going to now mandate indoor mask mandates. And in fact, certain sources that cover the White House very well, including Jack Posobiec, who has been wrong about almost nothing with his sources, say that lockdowns are coming to blue states in the next couple weeks.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I'm Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Democrats have doubled down on radical indoctrination in schools with their embrace of critical race theory. School boards and teachers unions have rushed to implement CRT into their curricula, in some cases while avoiding parental notification. Even as these education leaders refuse to reopen schools to children, they now plan to use their near monopoly on education to push this highly controversial ideology. It's already begun to backfire. Parents have begun demanding answers from school boards and campaigned to unseat their members.
Want to thank the people who sat in for me during my speaking tour in Eastern Europe. God, I look at this list, and it's, with one exception, they're really great. See, that's one of those lines that nobody expected. You are a screenwriter, seriously. I don't know if people know this, that I grabbed him from screenwriting. That was his profession. Is that the essence of humor, the unexpected, yes. The twist? Yes. That's it. That's the key. The key. Anyway, they're all great. Okay, it's just throwaway line. I do that in order to survive. Bob France, I love that guy. Will Witt and Amala Ekpunobi.
By the way, the K is not pronounced.
Oh, really? It's just Epunobi?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So it's like K in knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I love it. Will Witt and, well, I know Will and Amala, all right? These are terrific young folks at PragerU. No, don't do that. Hey, we don't do Manano, okay? No mockery of your last name, you white man. Oh, God, what I have to deal with. Anyway, Will and Amala, God bless you. Nick Adams. Hey, Nick, is he now in Tampa?
Yeah.
Oh, everybody's in Tampa. Mike Gallagher's in Tampa. I love the Tampa area, as you folks in Tampa know. Mark Eisler is my oldest friend in radio, I think. Yeah. And he's a great veteran. Julie Hartman, who you've heard on my show, and I listened to her in a cafe in Prague. And as I wrote to her at the moment, I had tears in my eyes. I really did. There's a picture of it. There's a picture of me tearing up. I wasn't sobbing, but I had tears in my eyes. A guy was interviewing me from a Czech paper, and I felt bad for the guy. I said, "I'm sorry, sir. Just let me listen for a moment, please." Julie Hartman, who's been on the show every week this summer. And John Hinderaker, who runs one of the great websites, correct? Powerline, one of the great websites in the country. This is quite an all-star lineup. Holy kazootie. I will tell you, though, my nature, we all have natures. So in one arena, there are two types of natures. I've said this my whole life because I have a certain self-awareness. And there are those who want to be stars, and there are those who want to be on an all-star team. My nature is to be on an all-star team. I don't need or want to be the star. Just my nature. I haven't battled for it. So thank you all. What a terrific group. That's why there's hope in America. These are people who give you hope. But I do not sugarcoat the situation in this country. This country is being ruined by the left. I mean, it is, if you are part of the left, your legacy, to the extent that anyone will remember you, all these writers now crapping on the United States, is that you actually hurt the freest, most wonderful country ever made. Why a person would want to do that at the Atlantic or at Slate or at any of these other places or at CNN or at the New York Times, why you would want to destroy what is good, it takes a sickness of the soul that I can't relate to. Nevertheless, there are so many of them, and they must be fought. 1-8 Prager 776. So in Hungary, they asked me a lot, as they did in Romania when I spoke in Romania 3 years ago. And I was going to say they did in Czech. Now they're calling it Czechia, which makes sense. Czech Republic doesn't quite do it. Czechoslovakia broke up. I have a lot to say about that, and you won't believe what I have to say about it as it happens. I'll save that for a few moments. But in Eastern Europe, there's an inferiority complex, which I understand. But there is. As much as they love their countries and are proud of their history to the extent that they are, there is an inferiority complex. I mean, when you compare yourself to France and Britain and Germany, Spain in its history, you think, they're the ones who shaped the West. And you're right. They are the ones who shaped the West. But they're opting out of the West. How much freedom is there in France today? Oh, it's the name of safety. So you see, people all never give up freedom in the name of giving up freedom. It's never happened. There's always some greater cause by which people justify robbing people of elementary civil liberties. You can't go into a cafe in France now unless you're vaccinated. Well, by the way, if you are vaccinated, here's the news. You still have to wear a mask. You're still going to get it, and you'll need a booster shot. That is one hell of a vaccine. Right? Booster shot. Not what President Fauci has announced? Booster shots. I wonder, those of you who are believers in the CDC, who lie with the ease with which you speak, if you trust them, at what number of booster shots will you wonder, is there any ill effect from an mRNA vaccine? Is there any number? When you're up to your 6th booster shot, will you feel, these guys really got it. They got it great. Bless them. 6 is the, isn't there a term? 3 is the, what is it? 3 is the, there's a term when people say 3 is the charm. Right, 3 is the charm, 6 is the charm. This is it. 3rd time's the charm, 6th time is the charm. That will be the motto on your 4th booster shot. 6 times the charm. That'll be the CDC motto. He who has not received his 4th booster cannot enter a cafe. Why will that not be applicable? Correct? Since the first 5 didn't work, you have to have had the 6th. Kids in masks. If your school requires masks and you send your kids to school, you are engaged in hurting your child. You don't want to. You love your child, but do not fool yourself. If there were an 11th commandment, I just came up with it. Do not fool thyself.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
And then suddenly people wake up. I never thought it would get this bad this quickly, but it seems that it has taken the madness. Most Americans, if they can finally focus, they just look up and they say, wait a minute. You're telling me the people burning down buildings aren't doing anything wrong. They're peaceful protesters. In other words, your average American who doesn't have a voice the way you do or I do looks around and says, this has gone too far. Madness has been unleashed on the land. I need to do something for my kids, for my grandkids. I thought freedom was a free ride, and I realize now, nope, I'm going to have to, pick up my gun and go to the front lines. Maybe not literally, but it's a similar thing. You realize that everything you held near and dear is being threatened directly. And when your kids are being threatened,
that's it.
You don't care. You're just going to do whatever it takes.
It's about the kids. You know the instinct. You know what the Lord teaches us about parenting. These parents aren't about to take this. They're not allowed. They're not about to allow this to happen in their schools. They may not have seen it because they worked, but I think the combination of having their kids at home during COVID, I think the left's movement, I think the idea somehow that our country was ill-founded, the 1619 Project, this idea that we're racist because we're white. This is something parents are not going to sit back and allow to be propagated. And so it'll take a little time to regain control of these city councils, of these school boards, of these state boards or regions that have allowed our university system to become, right, there's your American universities. Today, they're largely not American and, frankly, not the kind of university anybody would be proud of. I think people are going to take this all back, and what they need is good leaders who are fearless, helping them figure out where to apply their shoulder to the grindstone. We know choices matter.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
And if you work in a good restaurant, they make great money. It's not something to be embarrassed about. It's not something to be ashamed about. But this is what the left does. I'm telling you, we're dealing with elites in the White House now. We're dealing with people, a lot of people that haven't had to get their hands dirty, that look down upon other Americans. As a matter of fact, and I'll get to this as well, rural Democrats are too scared to mention their party affiliation. And they're too scared to mention their party affiliation because you have elites like Joe Biden who just cut this man down. This man, God knows how many people this particular gentleman employs, how many jobs that restaurant creates for people. And restaurants operate on extremely thin margins. For those of you that don't know, it is extremely hard to make a restaurant successful. So Joe Biden said, you know what, that American dream, that stinks. So people are leaving. They're going to look for better things. They're going to look for better opportunities. They're going to look for better pay. Hey, why don't you pay your people more? Basically, that's what he was. Well, actually, that's what he said. What you have is a president that's not even empathetic, a president that doesn't care about the little man, a president that's, you know, hey, I'm just an elite. You're just a peon. Come on, man. That business doesn't matter. That business doesn't matter. You think this is a man that can fix an economy? When he looks at a man that's living the American dream or was living the American dream and says, you know what? Your business stinks.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I'd like to remind you that August is fundraising month for PragerU, and why was I in Hungary and why was I in the Czech Republic? As people, young people, all young. I didn't meet anybody over 30, I don't think. All young people watching PragerU content, reading PragerU stuff. We were at, in Prague, we were at a table of about 20, 25 young people. 20s again, and I said, they came to hear me speak, but they may have been invited by a friend to come. I did not know whether they were all acquainted with me. So I just said, I promise I will not in any way be hurt by your response, but raise your hand if you are familiar with, watch PragerU content. Every hand went up, and my wife took a picture of the hands up. A good idea on her part. She said, keep your hands up, please. This is in Prague. In Hungary, at this conference, conservative conference of young people, I met people from about a dozen countries, and everyone greeted me like a long-lost brother. I called up Alan from Hungary, and I told him how moved I was, and he got moved. It's not easy to move the living martyr, but he was. He should be. It was his idea, PragerU. This is an interesting question. If it were my idea, would I have said Estrinu? See, I've never grappled with that question, and I was deeply moved. because the ideas that we enunciate and that I've devoted my life to are universal. The American value system, the American Trinity, e pluribus unum, in God we trust, liberty, that's all a country needs. That is all a country needs. And I told this in all the countries I've spoken, because they all have minorities. Every country has. There's virtually no country in the world. I don't know, does Japan have a minority? They probably do, but I'm not familiar with it. Japan tends to be Koreans, but I thought very few.
Yeah, but they don't treat.
No, they're right, and they are regarded as different. Yes. So, for example, there are Hungarians in Slovakia, right? So I was interviewed by Slovak media, and I mentioned that, and I spoke about e pluribus unum, that, and I addressed this both to Slovaks and to Hungarians living in Slovakia. If you're a Hungarian living in Slovakia, you have every right, and it is beautiful. If you retain the Hungarian language and Hungarian culture and pass it on to your child, that is wonderful. But you're Slovak. You're not Slovak ethnically, you're Slovak nationally. That's the beauty of nationalism. The nation brings people of all backgrounds together. That's what the American dream is of e pluribus unum, from many one. And in God we trust. None of the project of the West will work if we are secularized, as you now see. The breakdown of Western values. The belief that Beethoven is not great, Beethoven is white, is a product of the secular culture in which we live. I've spent my life on one theme, the consequences of secularism. I've made some headway. But most people have been brainwashed into believing that the enlightened mind is secular. The mind of a fool is secular. The mind of foolish institutions is secular. There are religious people who are foolish. There are individual secular people with the wisdom of the ages, because they grew up in a world that affirmed the wisdom of the Bible. But can you name me one secular institution with wisdom? Name one. Oh, the university. What a great example. Thanks for mentioning it. Now, there's where one goes for wisdom, right? The odds are you become stupid if you go to a college. The odds are. Doesn't mean you will, definitely. It means the odds are. Who's produced all this hideous nonsense that is taught to your children in schools? But the well-educated. 1-8 776. Anyway, everything you give to PragerU this week is doubled. PragerU.com, 833 PragerU. Help us fight. Guess what I traveled with? Whom I traveled with? You know, my wife. What I traveled with? My camera, my clothing, and Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a godsend. That's all I can say. Safe. Take it as long as you like. And it is a profound anti-inflammatory. Helps relieve massively joint and muscle pain. Try it for 3 weeks for just $19.95 at relieffactor.com, 800-500-8384.
I'm Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Democrats have doubled down on radical indoctrination in schools with their embrace of critical race theory. School boards and teachers unions have rushed to implement CRT into their curricula, in some cases while avoiding parental notification. Even as these education leaders refuse to reopen schools to children, they now plan to use their near monopoly on education to push this highly controversial ideology. It's already begun to backfire. Parents have begun demanding answers from school boards and campaigned to unseat their members. Politico reports that even Democratic voters are repelled by these plans, and that the radical efforts have fired up independent and conservative voters. The combination of closures and radical agendas have handed Republicans their best opening in decades. With parents under attack by the education establishment, now is the time to demand comprehensive school choice. The choice between liberty and bureaucratic domination over children is now crystal clear in all demographics and areas. The GOP needs to wake up to this golden opportunity. I'm Ed Morrissey.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
And then suddenly people wake up. I never thought it would get this bad this quickly, but it seems that it has taken the madness. Most Americans, if they can finally focus, they just look up and they say, wait a minute. You're telling me the people burning down buildings aren't doing anything wrong. They're peaceful protesters. In other words, your average American who doesn't have a voice the way you do or I do looks around and says, this has gone too far. Madness has been unleashed on the land. I need to do something for my kids, for my grandkids. I thought freedom was a free ride, and I realize now, nope, I'm going to have to, pick up my gun and go to the front lines. Maybe not literally, but it's a similar thing. You realize that everything you held near and dear is being threatened directly. And when your kids are being threatened,
that's it.
You don't care. You're just going to do whatever it takes.
It's about the kids. You know the instinct. You know what the Lord teaches us about parenting. These parents aren't about to take this. They're not allowed. They're not about to allow this to happen in their schools. They may not have seen it because they worked, but I think the combination of having their kids at home during COVID, I think the left's movement, I think the idea somehow that our country was ill-founded, the 1619 Project, this idea that we're racist because we're white, this is something parents are not going to sit back and allow to be propagated. And so it'll take a little time to regain control of these city councils, of these school boards, of these state boards or regions that have allowed our university system to become, right, these are American universities. Today, they're largely not American and, frankly, not the kind of university anybody would be proud of. I think people are going to take this all back, and what they need is good leaders who are fearless, helping them figure out where to apply their shoulder to the grindstone. We know choices matter.
Those who fight, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing. That's how good people are divided. Those who help the fighters are as important as the fighters. We're fighting, so please help us. I'm Dennis Prager, back from Hungary, Slovakia, and Czechia, it is now known, or Czech Republic. Ready for a great story. So, I rented a car in Budapest, where we landed, as I always do. By the way, there was only one company that rented a car that you could drive from Budapest to Prague. Not Hertz, not Avis, not National, the big three of the U.S. A German company named 6T, S-I-X-T. Whom I found to be wonderful. And I'm a big supporter of supporting America. I mean, I'm in the president's circle of Hertz. You know how much you have to rent? How often you have to rent a car to be in the president's circle? But nothing. There was nothing available. They didn't bother doing that. Anyway, we rented the car, and I wanted to get to Slovakia, which is to the north of Budapest, capital of Hungary. We were going to not only visit Slovakia, be interviewed there, but we were going to visit a Catholic priest. Slovakia is a religious country. Czech, it's an interesting thing I'll talk about next hour. The difference between Czechs and Slovaks. One of the biggest differences is religious. Slovaks are religious as a general rule, and the Czechs are the most secular people in Europe, which is quite something given how secular Europe is. So I was worried about getting into Slovakia. What would I need to get in terms of COVID? And, you know, they have borders where you drive across, and there are guards there, and they presumably check. No pun intended. And so, are you ready? This wonderful priest wrote a letter in Slovak, or Slovakian. I guess it's Slovak. I don't know if it's Slovak or Slovakian. Affirming that I needed to attend the funeral of my brother in Bratislava. No, in what is it? Taverna. Anyway, the city that we were visiting. I am laminating this letter. I'm debating whether to tell my brother, my one sibling, that I attended his funeral in Slovakia this past week. I think he'll find it hilarious. I think I know my brother well enough. I love these little things a lot. And as it turns out, we got to the border, the Slovakian-Hungarian border, and there are about 5 army guys there, and they look at us and all just wave. That was it. I didn't need my brother's funeral letter, after all, but I am definitely laminating it. I love these memories of travel. So if I couldn't get into Slovakia, I was going to visit a newly made young friend in Vienna. At this conference, if you could have been with me as the proverbial fly on the wall, you would have met young people from Hungary, Hungary, Czech Republic, Austria, Holland, Poland, Romania, just ones that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. That would give you so much a boost. You know what people need a booster shot in? Not against COVID. They need a booster shot against despair. I have zero despair. And I am not Mr. Optimistic. I know that the human race is pathetic. There are great individuals, but as a collective, it stinks. But the great individuals really do give you, especially when they're so young, they really give you a booster shot. And interestingly, me, quite older than they, give them a booster shot, which is why they come to hear me. Do you know that young people ache, consciously or not, young people ache for older people to be models? Because life is very confusing, so you need to see things that you want to emulate in an older person. Why do so many of you, people 10 years younger than me, will call up the show and have my whole life? Which is, well, not my whole life. 35 years I'm on radio. I've been on radio. You know, Dennis, you're like a father figure to me. And I'm very touched by that. And you know my line. Every man should aspire to be a father figure to younger men. We'd have a much more beautiful world. How many leftists are father figures? It's an interesting question. How many people say to Chuck Schumer, you know, you're a father figure to me? And I didn't even pick a weirdo. He portrays himself as normal. George Soros, You are a father figure. It is an interesting question. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that is a reaction that they often get. I was very moved, as you can tell, by this trip. But to revert to how I opened, to my shock, I felt that I had left a freer country to a less free country, when of all places I left Hungary and came back to America. I'm Dennis Prager. We continue.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I mean, if you're going to censor yourself in deference to that power that's above you, that's telling you what you can and can't say, then you are the joke. You're not making jokes. You are the joke. Comedians, in our situation, what we look at is what we're doing. We're often accused, we're lately have been accused of punching down. We're punching back. We're not punching down. This is a situation where conservatives are literally on the ropes in the culture battle.
Yeah.
And they're defending themselves against this top-down attack, this top-down tyranny from progressive ideology that's coming from celebrities, it's coming from corporations, it's coming from politicians.
Yeah.
We're not punching down. We're punching back at that stuff.
So how big has the Babylon Bee? Like, it's grown dramatically, but give us some numbers so we have a sense of where you've come from in the last 4 years.
Well, so in the last 4 years, I mean, we've crossed the 1 million follower threshold on most of our social media.
You know what?
So
I believe I was the 1 million follower.
Were you?
And don't I get something?
You get something. You get like a million. What is the currency in Venezuela? What's it called?
Zloty? No, that's another country.
Yeah, it's worth almost nothing. I think you get 30 cents.
But you know what? That's better than nothing. It's almost nothing, but it's not nothing. 1 million followers.
A million followers on Twitter, a million followers
Twitter.
on Instagram, a million followers on Facebook. We're
on all these platforms?
Yeah, on each of them. Yeah, on each of them.
But here's the thing. That million is worth more than the normal million. What I mean is, anybody who appreciates the humor of the Babylon Bee has to be sophisticated, because it is brilliant humor. It's not broad. It's not stupid humor. It's brilliant humor. You have to be aware of who you're making fun of and whatever. The funniest thing
sometimes we go for the low-hanging dumb jokes.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This insane reversal. We've been told by Biden, by Fauci, if you're vaccinated, you don't need a mask. Now you do, perhaps for the rest of eternity. That this decision is based apparently on an unpublished, unpeer-reviewed publication from India about a vaccine that you can't even get here in America.
And it's actually even better than that, because they didn't even understand the study, because in the CDC slide deck, they refer to it as a study in healthcare professionals, when in fact it was a study in simulated persons in a laboratory. It was not a study in actual human beings.
It was a simulation.
Yes, it was a simulation. It was a lab simulation in India.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. If I don't get to you, sometimes I summarize your call. Forgive me. At least your idea got in, if you didn't. Like Pat in Chicago, a male Pat, it's noted, says people get booster shots all their life. Why is that bad? The reason it's bad in the case of the vaccine is this is a brand new type, an mRNA vaccine, is not a flu shot. And that's the reason And it was not sold to us. It was sold to us as it will work. Not that you will be getting booster shots every year in order to make it work. Anyway, that's, but if you're happy, Pat, I'm not trying to make you unhappy. So I hope you get your third mRNA shot, and I hope it doesn't hurt you. You're only 40 years old. Your chances of dying of COVID are close to zero. Let's see, what else here? Mandatory injections will lead this country to war. It's the opposite view by Barbara in Chicago. Barbara and Pat should have a coffee, don't you think? I would like you guys to meet and nicely enjoy a latte together. I don't know if mandatory injections will lead this country to war, but I could see people saying, wait a minute, I am deprived from entering any place in this country? Aren't the people on the left say that the government should not tamper with your body? Isn't that their whole theme? So there should be zero laws governing the existence of a human fetus in the third trimester, because a woman can do what she wants with her own body, but nobody can do what they want with their own body with regard to a brand new type of vaccination that they now concede often doesn't work, and whose long-term effects we have no way of knowing. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying we have no way of knowing their long-term impact. So a woman can do what she wants with her own body when it isn't her body, because it's another body. I mean, so it's just a false statement. Nobody ever said a woman can't do what she wants with her own body. But the same people are the most avid about telling you what to do with your own body with regard to an mRNA vaccination. Because they don't really mean what they say. They use lines to win their point at the moment. They don't really mean let a woman do what she wants with her own body. They didn't have the women in the Miss America contest vote on whether there would be a swimsuit competition. They told them there won't be.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We have vaccine mandates for federal workers. Nancy Pelosi says masks are back. You're going to be arrested if you don't wear them in Congress. When is this going to end, Phil?
You know, it's I don't know when it's going to end. We've got the masks are mandatory again in Washington, D.C. As of 5 a.m. Tomorrow morning, which is very interesting because it's been 13 days since the District of Columbia last reported a death with COVID. We've had 11 homicides in the last 13 days,
yep.
But 0 deaths with COVID. And,
maybe they should ban homicides, Phil.
Yeah, right. Well, or at least maybe have a little bit more vigorous enforcement of the existing laws against them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins and bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Rovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust him. He is a good and very knowledgeable man. Call Nick at 800-221-7694, 800-221-7694, AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. Not one mistake.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Well, according to the CDC's own documents, right here, Barnstable, or is it Barnstable? Whatever. County, Massachusetts. Outbreak. In all bold. No difference in mean CT values in unvaccinated and vaccinated cases. In fact, the vaccinated cases were 0.4% higher. That's the CDC's own data. That vaccinated Americans in Massachusetts, I'm just reading from the document, in Barnstable County, that the median among vaccinated was N equals 80. I'm not sure what that value represents, but 21.9. Unvaccinated N equals 65, 21.5. I'm guessing that's how many people they were testing. I need to go look at what the values represent. It says here that risk of infection, reinfection with the Delta variant may be higher compared to the Alpha variant, but only if prior infection is 180 days earlier. It says this, that the Delta variant may cause more severe disease than the Alpha or the ancestral strains. So they're already going to now mandate indoor mask mandates. And in fact, certain sources that cover the White House very well, including Jack Posobiec, who has been wrong about almost nothing with his sources, say that lockdowns are coming to blue states in the next couple weeks.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I'm Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Democrats have doubled down on radical indoctrination in schools with their embrace of critical race theory. School boards and teachers unions have rushed to implement CRT into their curricula, in some cases while avoiding parental notification. Even as these education leaders refuse to reopen schools to children, they now plan to use their near monopoly on education to push this highly controversial ideology. It's already begun to backfire. Parents have begun demanding answers from school boards and campaigned to unseat their members. Politico reports that even Democratic voters are repelled by these plans, and that the radical efforts have fired up independent and conservative voters. The combination of closures and radical agendas have handed Republicans their best opening in decades. With parents under attack by the education establishment, now is the time to demand comprehensive school choice. The choice between liberty and bureaucratic domination over children is now crystal clear in all demographics and areas. The GOP needs to wake up to this golden opportunity. I'm Ed Morrissey.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
And then suddenly people wake up. I never thought it would get this bad this quickly, but it seems that it has taken the madness. Most Americans, if they can finally focus, they just look up and they say, wait a minute. You're telling me the people burning down buildings aren't doing anything wrong. They're peaceful protesters. In other words, your average American who doesn't have a voice the way you do or I do looks around and says, this has gone too far. Madness has been unleashed on the land. I need to do something for my kids, for my grandkids. I thought freedom was a free ride, and I realize now, nope, I'm going to have to, pick up my gun and go to the front lines. Maybe not literally, but it's a similar thing. You realize that everything you held near and dear is being threatened directly. And when your kids are being threatened,
that's it.
You don't care. You're
That's
just going to do whatever it takes.
It's about the kids. You know the instinct. You know what the Lord teaches us about parenting. These parents aren't about to take this. They're not allowed. They're not about to allow this to happen in their schools. They may not have seen it because they worked, but I think the combination of having their kids at home during COVID, I think the left's movement, I think the idea somehow that our country was ill-founded, the 1619 Project, this idea that we're racist because we're white, this is something parents are not going to sit back and allow to be propagated. And so it'll take a little time to regain control of these city councils, of these school boards, of these state boards or regions that have allowed our university system to become, right, these are American universities. Today, they're largely not American and, frankly, not the kind of university anybody would be proud of. I think people are going to take this all back, and what they need is good leaders who are fearless, helping them figure out where to apply their shoulders.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. It is good to be back after a week away in Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. Lecturing in all of them. No, I didn't lecture in Slovakia. I was interviewed by the media, but I didn't have a lecture. Had constant media in all three countries. It was phenomenal. It was good for my soul. I mentioned last hour, and I will again because of its significance, that the tingle that I have felt all of my life, welcome back to the United States of America, or welcome back home, when my Czech passport would be checked as I re-entered, or welcome to the USA, the sign at the airport, didn't have the same tingle as all of my life. The left is destroying this country. If you don't recognize that, it's either you're on the left or you're afraid to see reality because people don't stare evil in the face. As I have said all of my life, evil is not dark. People can look into the dark. They can't look into the light. Somebody once made the point as a result of that, Lucifer comes from light. I'm not a devil believer, but I must say I've been rethinking that. It's hard to explain how people could be devoted to destroying good as the left is in destroying America. Victor Davis Hanson writes exactly this, and I will read to you a little from it. But I do want to state again that leaving Hungary and coming to the United States, using Hungary as an example, I felt that I was leaving a freer country for a less free one. Do you understand what I just said? Do you understand what it means to me? I've been to Hungary 5 times. I was there first under communism. That I would say what I just said to you on a national radio show in the United States? You understand how painful that is? Hungary is freer than the United States. The consequences for saying something that the authorities do not like is greater in the United States than in Hungary. Freedom of speech is the freedom. It's the biggest freedom of all. There is more free speech. In other words, you can attack the left in Hungary and not worry about repercussions nearly as much as attacking the left in the United States and worrying about repercussions. That's freedom. And it is less and less here. 2 million people are going to be allowed into this country because there is no border. I've charged the left with believing in open borders for years, and it is remarkable. It is a great example of the staggering naivete of liberals. Because I read comments to my columns, I read comments to others' columns. It's a very important thing that I feel that I do. I've written 2 articles on New York Times comments on New York Times articles, just in the last month. So when I would mention that the left believes in open borders, meaning no borders, liberals, people say, oh, I'm not a leftist, but that's phony. Name one leftist who's come out for open borders. That's a perfect example of the foolishness of liberals. You have to say, I'm for open borders to be for open borders? Isn't that bizarre? Isn't it your policies that matter? We have an open border in the southern part of the United States today. For that alone, it is a catastrophe that Donald Trump was not reelected. It's a catastrophe that no Republican was elected president. It's a catastrophe. I almost never use the word. Democrats are an existential threat to the United States. Okay, let's use the left's favorite word, existential threat. I fear the left on a magnitude that is immeasurable, greater than I fear global warming. Bjorn Lomborg had a great piece on the latest IPCC report. I will bring that to your attention because he's as clear on that subject as Victor Davis Hanson is on other subjects. And hopefully I am on my subjects. I thank the great people who sat in for me last hour. Once again, Bob France, Will Witt, Amala Bonobi, the two great young folks. Nick Adams, Mark Eisler, Julie Hartman making her debut. Years from today, when this woman has her own show somewhere in some medium, she will say, my first appearance was sitting in for Dennis Prager. I will be very touched by that. And John Hinderaker, all thank you again, all of you. Show's in good hands when I leave. By the way, for the record, this was my first vacation in quite some time, and it was helpful. Everybody should take one. It doesn't have to be long, but it is a good thing. And when you get away, most Americans are not traveling abroad now. It's not that easy. You can do it. I did it. I have been tested for COVID so often that I can write a review on testing facilities. I was tested twice in the Czech Republic. How many Americans can say that? My wife and I may be the only Americans to have been tested twice in Prague in 2 days. We were tested in Hungary. We were tested God knows how many times in the United States. It's fine with me. I don't mind being tested. It's a nothing. I mean, they swirl your nose. Except in one case, I will admit, they went so high I thought they were poking my brain. I don't know why they did it. Maybe the woman didn't like me. I didn't ask her that. This is for Dennis Prager. And all you right-wing fascists. This may not tickle a little bit. That's right. Otherwise, they do. I went to Czechoslovakia, actually. I went to Czech and Slovakia. So most of you know that Czechoslovakia broke up into Czechia or Czech Republic. It's now moving to Czechia from Czech Republic. I'll call them both. I'll call it both. And Slovakia. So what is the difference between the Czechs and the Slovaks? Eastern Europe was my field of study, but I'm not an expert on that, but I do know something about it. So their languages are virtually identical. Their ethnicity, to the extent that there is an ethnicity, is identical. So they obviously have a different language, Slovak or Slovakian. You want to look it up if it's Slovak or Slovakian, the name of the language, and the name of a person. Are you a Slovak or a Slovakian? And a Czech. So they're the same alphabet. The languages are very, very, very similar. The biggest difference, there's a national identity difference that Slovak. Okay, so what is Slovakian then? Is that word exist? What is that the name of the language? I guess it's the name of the language. Slovakian. A Slovak speaks Slovakian. So they broke up, and I think it was there are 10 million people in the Czech Republic and 5 million in Slovakia. So the little guy apparently wanted the breakup more than the big guy. They wanted to retain their identity, and a big part of the difference is religious. Slovaks are religious Catholics by and large, and Czechs are atheists by and large. That's a big difference. And I was thinking in terms of the United States, and I certainly am not proposing this, but I was thinking the differences between the left and the right in the United States are very analogous. Well, not really. They're greater, actually, than the difference between the Slovaks and the Czechs. I will continue. 1-8 Prager 776.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We've had 11 homicides in the last 13 days,
Yep.
But 0 deaths with COVID. And,
Maybe they should ban homicides, Phil.
Yeah, right. Well, or at least maybe have a little bit more vigorous enforcement of the existing laws against them. But look, I mean, it's just completely bizarre. You know, I looked up the most recent percentage of emergency room visits. They post every couple of days that had COVID in the District of Columbia, and it was 0.25%, which has got to be like one person, basically, that showed up at an emergency room. And, but the CDC says mask. The Democratic mayor says absolutely, we're on board. A couple of days later, it comes into effect, and I expect other liberal areas will follow suit because there doesn't need to be any basis in the metrics of the data or the facts of the science. The play.
So let's talk about this for a second. So can you confirm or deny, or do you have any other visibility that apparently this insane reversal? We've been told by Biden, by Fauci, if you're vaccinated, you don't need a mask. Now you do, perhaps for the rest of eternity. That this decision is based apparently on an unpublished, unpeer-reviewed publication from India about a vaccine that you can't even get here in America.
Yeah, and it's actually even better than that because they didn't even understand the study, because in the CDC slide deck, they refer to it as a study in healthcare professionals when in fact it was a study in simulated persons in a laboratory. It was not a study in actual human beings.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
So they're already going to now mandate indoor mask mandates. And in fact, certain sources that cover the White House very well, including Jack Posobiec, who has been wrong about almost nothing with his sources, say that lockdowns are coming to blue states in the next couple weeks. Did you know that 5 people in Washington, D.C. died from COVID in the last week, and 11 people died from homicide? On average, we have 1,800 people that die of heart disease every single day in America. Why are we allowing these people to now get us into another state of panic?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
And then you want it to fit better. So one of the ways you could do it, if you would like to, is put a cloth mask over, which actually here and here and here, where you could get leakage in.
Prager back from Hungary, Slovakia, and Czechia, as it is now called, which makes sense. Czechoslovakia becomes Czechia and Slovakia. But they called themselves the Czech Republic. So I was talking to you about the breakup and how relevant it is to an American. They look identical, they share virtually the same language. Czech and Slovak are very similar. And a big difference, if not the biggest, is actually religious. I mean, in general, Slovaks are more conservative, and Slovaks are definitely more religious. And Czechs are the most secular national group in Europe. It's the most atheist, I think, of all the countries, although there's a great competition for that title. Nevertheless, the Czechs may have already earned it. They may end up being tied for it. So I'm thinking about the United States, wherein the left and right have less in common than Czechs and Slovaks, and Czechoslovakia broke up. I have nothing in common with the leftists. Nothing. Every left-wing value is the antithesis of what I cherish about goodness, about God, about country, about liberty, but most of all, goodness. I actually think that proportionately there are more fine, decent, kind conservatives than fine, decent, kind leftists. Liberals are mixed. Problem with liberals is that they don't have the courage to confront the left. And the issue is courage. So they turn a blind eye. They've been brainwashed to think that the right is their enemy, the right is their ally. Every liberal value is being fought for, not by liberals, but by conservatives. If liberals awakened, or ironically, if liberals awoke, the country would be saved. The left is destroying it, but the left are the enablers, but the liberals are the enablers of them. You know that in Oregon, the governor of Oregon, Kate Brown, signed a law to allow Oregon students to graduate without proving they can write or do math. She won't talk about it, however. I don't know what the people of Oregon think. Does a liberal Oregon think it's a good thing that there are no standards any longer in reading or math? Anyway, why would there be? They have to spend the time on teaching them about the non-existence, the non-binary nature of gender. That's what they have. Math. Yes, well, math and reading. Everything is racist if it is an anti-racist. That's the Ibram X. Kendi motto. So you must spend all of your time indoctrinating your kids against racism, which is a joke given that the left is the most racist large group in the United States. They're tied with the Ku Klux Klan, but the Ku Klux Klan is virtually non-existent. Any of you ever meet a KKKer? Every one of you knows a leftist, but not one of you knows a KKKer. Isn't that true? So what What are we talking about here? You know anybody who's into QAnon? I don't. Do you? I'm a conservative, and I never saw, I don't even know what it is. I only hear it from the left. QAnon. Oh, QAnon. QAnon. That's what they do. They make up stuff. Tell me it's not racist to say that minorities should not have to live up to math standards. Can you think of a more obviously racist statement? This is, by the way, this is from the Oregonian. This is not from a conservative site. For the next 5 years, an Oregon high school diploma will be no guarantee that the student who earned it can read, write, or do math at a high school level. So what does a diploma mean? It means that you attended high school for 4 years. You attended. It doesn't actually show proficiency in anything. Now, do you believe me that the left ruins everything it touches? Everything. There is no exception. There never has been. Governor Kate Brown has demurred earlier this summer regarding whether she supported the plan passed by the legislature. Oh, that's interesting. The legislator. Of course, she's only signing what the legislature passed. That students demonstrate they have achieved these essential skills. But on July 14th, the governor signed Senate Bill 744 into law. Through a spokesperson, the governor declined again Friday to comment on the law and why she supported suspending the proficiency requirements. By the way, Kate Brown is another example of what I have been pointing out to you for some time now. For those of you who think the world would be better if it were governed by women, please understand the disproportionate role women are playing in destroying the country. Okay? As in, for example, the teaching profession. The Oregonian Oregon Live asked the governor's office when Brown's staff notified the legislature that she had signed the bill. The governor's deputy communications director said the governor's staff notified legislative staff the same day the governor signed the bill. Now, here's the key. Boyle, that's the governor's deputy communications director, said in an emailed statement that suspending the reading, writing, and math proficiency requirements while the state develops new graduation standards will benefit, quote, Oregon's Black, Latino, Latina, and Latinx. Is there one Latino who uses Latinx? Do you know the New York Times uses Latinx? Blew my mind to see that. Capitalized Black. These are important changes, ladies and gentlemen. This is the stuff the left fights for. Latinx, capital B for Black. Oh, and the new one is, by the way, I saw this in, where did I see it? Oh, it's painful. I just saw it in a normative source. People giving birth, not women giving birth. It was a normative source. I have to get it out for you. I think it was the New York Times, which is normative left, but normative. I'm not done. This will benefit, having no graduation standards will benefit Oregon's Black, Latino, Latina, Latinx, Indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander, Tribal, and students of color. Doesn't all the other stuff sort of cover students of color? What student of color is not a Pacific Islander, Asian, Indigenous, Latinx, Latina, Latino, Black person? What other people of color are there? Just out of curiosity. So notice how racist they are. They acknowledge it won't benefit whites. Dropping standards in math and reading will not benefit whites. Wow. That is as pure an anti-people of color statement. Contempt for them as you can show. Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins and bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, One precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Rovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust him. He is a good and very knowledgeable man. Call Nick at 800-221-7694, 800-221-7694, AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. Not one mistake.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Well, according to the CDC's own documents, right here, Barnstable, or is it Barnstable? Whatever. County, Massachusetts. Outbreak. In all bold. No difference in mean CT values in unvaccinated and vaccinated cases. In fact, the vaccinated cases were 0.4% higher. That's the CDC's own data. That vaccinated Americans in Massachusetts, I'm just reading from the document, in Barnstable County, that the median among vaccinated was N equals 80. I'm not sure what that value represents, but 21.9. Unvaccinated, N equals 65, 21.5. I'm guessing that's how many people they were testing. I need to go look at what the values represent. It says here that risk of infection, reinfection with the Delta variant may be higher compared to the Alpha variant, but only if prior infection is 180 days earlier. It says this, that the Delta variant may cause more severe disease than the Alpha or the ancestral strains. So they're already going to now mandate indoor mask mandates. And in fact, certain sources that cover the White House very well, including Jack Posobiec, who has been wrong about almost nothing with his sources, say that lockdowns are coming to blue states in the next couple weeks.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I'm Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Democrats have doubled down on radical indoctrination in schools with their embrace of critical race theory. School boards and teachers unions have rushed to implement CRT into their curricula, in some cases while avoiding parental notification. Even as these education leaders refuse to reopen schools to children, they now plan to use their near monopoly on education to push this highly controversial ideology. It's already begun to backfire. Parents have begun demanding answers from school boards and campaigned to unseat their members. Politico reports that even Democratic voters are repelled by these plans, and that the radical efforts have fired up independent and conservative voters. The combination of closures and radical agendas have handed Republicans their best opening in decades. With parents under attack by the education establishment, now is the time to demand comprehensive school choice. The choice between liberty and bureaucratic domination over children is now crystal clear in all demographics and areas. The GOP needs to wake up to this golden opportunity. I'm Ed Morrissey.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
And then suddenly people wake up. I never thought it would get this bad this quickly, but it seems that it has taken the madness. Most Americans, if they can finally focus, they just look up and they say, wait a minute, you're telling me the people burning down buildings aren't doing...
All right, everybody, Dennis Prager here. Remember, I was in Hungary to give lectures for a major conservative conference of young people, at least from a dozen countries that I met. And it was because of my work with PragerU, people watching me on my fireside chats, watching our videos, 90% of which are not mine, I'm proud to say. I have involvement in every one of them, but they are not mine. And the same happened in the Czech Republic. meeting young people. So please help us, because we're fighting the good fight. Over 1 billion, that's with a B, views a year, mostly people under 35 years of age. During the month of March, that's true, but during the month of August, because my birthday was August 2, we just picked August to do fundraising for PragerU. Whatever you give this week is doubled by donors who will simply match what you give. PragerU.com, 833-PragerU. And once a day I talk to somebody affiliated in some way with PragerU. Brittany Bross is a staff member, an assistant to our CEO, Marissa Streit. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, Dennis.
How old are you, Brittany?
I am 32.
Oh, pretty old for PragerU.
I know, I am, right?
Which is, it's funny to say, but so I'm laughing about it. So what is your what is your story? Alan tells me you have a compelling story.
Yeah, all right. Well, so also I heard you mention I'm the assistant to our CEO, so a little bit about what I do is I work super closely with her and our chief of staff, and my number one job is to manage her calendar and her appointments and just keep everything running smoothly at PragerU. So I got my start here and became interested in working at PragerU because I actually used to be liberal and became a conservative last year when everything, was really put in the pressure cooker with the pandemic.
How did that happen?
Well, I found myself really concerned with a lot of the restrictions that were put in place, and I found myself tending to agree a bit more with what conservatives were saying as far as, keeping in mind our civil liberties and, keeping in mind our Constitution and that things should not necessarily be mandated and that things should be options and that citizens should be able to make the choices that are best for them. And I found myself really having to kind of question my worldview, having previously been liberal, and finding myself not really agreeing with this kind of blanket mandate response to the pandemic. And so from there, I started watching PragerU videos and just kind of educating myself on perspectives that I didn't necessarily agree with and that I wasn't as familiar with. And it was kind of one rabbit hole after another. And I found myself realizing that, a lot of the conservative values made a lot of sense, and they were rooted in fact and not so much emotion, and they were more rooted in this sense of this belief that there is an objective truth that exists that we should be seeking and finding, and that we shouldn't be basing the truth on our feelings and, the spur of the moment.
That's what we stand for. Do you have a favorite PragerU video? You don't have to have one, but do you have one?
I would say probably one of my favorite fireside chats was the one that you did with Pastor Rob McCoy not too long ago. That one stands out to me as just a favorite recently. I think it'd be hard to pick a favorite of all time.
No, that's fine. I always ask it out of curiosity. Listen, you're an example of what we can do at PragerU in touching a person's mind and heart. I bless you for your work for us. She's an example. I could just do shows of examples because there are probably millions. Help us at PragerU.com, 833-PragerU. Brittany, thank you, and thank you for all the great work you do. Folks, Nerve Renew time. Nerve Renew is one of the few products I have asked to advertise on my show rather than them coming to me. I have had the tingling numbness that many people have in hands and feet. I've had it in my feet much of my life. It's genetic. And I finally discovered a way of putting in inserts that were very into my shoes, very helpful. Then I read about Nerve Renew on the internet, figured I'll give it a try. And guess what? After 8 months, I threw away the inserts. I'm not wearing them now. I haven't worn them since I began Nerve Renew. Try it for 2 weeks for free and 1 year money-back guarantee. Try NerveRenew.com. Try NerveRenew.com.
Here at Salem Media Group, we're delighted to welcome you back to your old habits and haunts. Nice to see you at our restaurants. We've been waiting a long time for you to return. Nice to see you at the salon, the post office, the flower shop. Nice to see you back in the office. Nice to see all those cars on the freeway again.
Yay! Hello, Bedford Falls!
For over a year, America has been fighting to get back to normal. This Salem radio station has been fighting right alongside you. Now we're back. You're back. It feels so good to be back.
Welcome back to the real.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
And I know so many people who are resistant to the vaccine. It's just a fact of life. And there are people in all walks of life, white people, black people, Hispanic people, members of the military, the healthcare profession. You know how many nurses, and dare I say doctors, physician's assistants, unwilling to get the vaccine? It's more than a little. So what do we do with them? What do we do with those people? In fact, that's been one of the most unreported stories of the whole crisis of this pandemic. Healthcare workers who are unvaccinated.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Stephen, let's pretend like you were president for a day. What do we do to get this economy back in shape?
So the first thing we do is we actually do exactly think of everything Biden has done and do exactly the opposite. And I'm not kidding, Carl. I mean, we do exactly the opposite of what Biden is doing. You know, we don't need $4 trillion of spending right now. We need to be, after a crisis is over, and COVID is basically over now thanks to Trump and the vaccine, usually after like World War II or after the Cold War, we actually cut spending. We need to be aggressively cutting government spending. By the way, government spending, you know this, Carl, where did this crazy idea come from that government spending stimulates? All the government spending stimulates is government. It doesn't, the only way, let me put it very simply, because this is really important. I know you know this as a businessman. The only way that the government can give you $1,000 is to take $1,000 away from me, right? It's a zero-sum game, and all we're doing is taking money away from producers and giving it to people who don't produce. That's a formula for disaster.
You know what? It's so funny that you mention that. I talk about that often on my show, and one of the things, it's
right, isn't it? Another example. How do you talk to your child about the afterlife or God when they ask about it? Gee, we're really a hate group. The only people who label PragerU a hate group are hate groups. That's the truth. Well, I am very refreshed from my trip to Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. I spent 6 hours, my wife and I spent 6 hours with a Slovak priest whom we met at the conference of conservatives, young, 31 years old. Everybody was young. we fell in love with the guy, invited us to visit him on our way up to Czech Republic, because, to be honest, I had to get to Slovakia because I don't have many compulsions, but one is to get to every country possible before I leave this world. I'm now up to 131 because I had not been to Slovakia. I had been to Czechoslovakia, but I'm very honest. Doesn't count. When they broke up, I had only been to the Czech part. So it turns out to have been one great trip, interviewed by the Slovak press as well. And 6 hours we spent from 8 p.m. to 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. with members of his parish who were big fans of mine in Slovakia. It was a very wonderful feeling that you're getting your message out to all over the world. But I love this man. We had a cigar together. He got me to drink brandy. I don't ever drink alcohol. I'm not opposed to it, just not a fan. But it was good. And he and I mean, I've known this, but he said, of course I'm a religious Jew. He's obviously a deeply committed Catholic. And he just spoke about how much we have in common, which of course I know. In the West, the division is not between Christian and Jew. The ideological division is between left and right. I have much more in common with a Slovak priest who's conservative than I do with a Jewish leftist. And the Jewish leftist would agree, by the way. It's not even an insult. It's not an attack. It's just a fact. I've known this all of my life. I'm not bonded by anything other than values. Values are my bonds. That's why I believe in adoption. I have no interest in passing on my seed. I only have interest in passing on my values. Do your children have your seed? Is that important? It's 1,000th the importance of do your children have your values. That's what matters. I divide the world between the decent and the indecent, just as Viktor Frankl suggested we do in that magnificent book, Man's Search for Meaning. There was an article recently, a big article, that Viktor Frankl really didn't spend a lot of time in Auschwitz. So I'm thinking, so what? Isn't that interesting? I mean, what do I care? What if he spent a week there? Did he or did he not? Was his wife murdered or not in a Nazi camp? So he didn't spend as long as is implied by his book? Oh my God. I mean, people look for things to say that I don't think are significant, but they want to say them. All right, let's take some calls here. George in Miami, Florida. Hello.
Hey, Dennis. Thank you for the call. And as I mentioned to your screener, I was, kind of concerned about, identifying myself because of my background and fear in this country where, I fled Hungary after the revolution, then was an FBI agent working against communism for many years, and then was the FBI representative to Hungary. And now, I feel freer living in Hungary.
That's what I said. I don't have a Hungarian background. I said, in case people didn't hear it, one of the saddest things I've said in my career as a radio talk show host over 35 years, I felt freer in Hungary than in the United States.
Yeah. I mean, if I could have, I would have asked your screener, can you scramble my voice? It's that scary around here these days.
That's right.
The
That's
repercussions
correct.
to the freedom and free speech are immense.
Well, my friend, by the way, when were you last there?
I I was last there after my 2 years there as a diplomatic representative by the FBI. So I was last there, went back a year later, so that would have been 2004.
So you were there 17 years ago. Well, you will if you visit now, you will be very tempted to spend a longer time there. I met Americans living there. It was jolting. People who love America, and yet felt they could breathe. Incidentally, an interesting thing: the same percentage of Hungarians are vaccinated as Americans, maybe less, and I didn't see a single mask, nowhere. I would have put up some pictures. I mean, I was watching. I was sitting near a major pedestrian mall. Not one person was wearing a mask. Are they dropping dead of COVID there? Also, you see a lot of people smiling and laughing. It's a good sign for a society.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
And the whole point of it was to do comedy from a Christian conservative perspective that wasn't cheesy, that didn't make us the joke. Because
isn't it funny that we always have to start there?
Yeah,
we're doing it. It's really brilliant, but it's not cheesy.
Right.
Like we're making films, but it's not cheesy. It's a TV program, but it's not cheesy.
That we do that's cheesy.
And it is an amazing thing. I said it before, but you guys, it's not just not cheesy. It's brilliant, and actually, in the world in which we live today, it's almost the only stuff that's happening at that level. I mean, there's nothing on the left.
Well, I can tell you why.
To it.
The reason there's nothing good on the left right now, and I know I've followed The Onion for years. They've been around for 20 plus years. They used to be very funny. They're less funny now, and they're less funny now for a very good reason. You know, the left has made all these rules about what you can and can't say, and they also have this idea that you can't offend anybody.
Right.
So in enforcing these rules, they even do this on comedians. They try to make comedians follow rules. You can't say this, you can't say that, you can't joke about this, you can't offend this people group,
right.
You can't punch down, never punch down.
Right.
And so they make all these rules, and comedians, by their nature, flout rules. They make fun of people who make rules. That's what comedians are supposed to do, right? That's really their role in all of this. And so to handcuff comedians in that way, leftists are actually by trying to kill comedy and strangle it, they're creating an opportunity for people on the other side of the aisle to say the things that you're not supposed to say, make the jokes you're not supposed to make.
It's fascinating to me to see people who might previously have identified as on the left or something pushing back against the cancel culture and the absurdity of this, because they're usually the ones who are doing that with the right.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And he says, if you want to convince people to get a vaccine, writes Matt Taibbi, pretty much the worst way to go about it is a massive blame campaign delivered by sneering blue noses who have a richly deserved credibility problem with large chunks of the population, and now insist they're owed financially besides. Matt Taibbi says, I'm vaccinated. I think people should be vaccinated. But the latest moral mania we're witnessing, and make no mistake about it, he writes, the pandemic of the unvaccinated PR campaign is the latest in a ceaseless series of such manias dating back to late 2016, lays bare everything that's abhorrent and nonsensical.
I'm Dennis Prager, back from Hungary, Slovakia, and Czech Republic, reflecting on the world in which we live. Rome, New York, and Chip. Hello, Chip.
Oh, hi, Mr. Prager.
Hi.
Just want to thank you for all of what you do. I was always really touched by the Calvin Coolidge video that you made with Amity Schlaze, and from there I just joined the Coolidge Foundation and kind of found a big hobby of mine.
That's great. He's one of my favorite presidents.
I think, he's become mine too. He's quite the forgotten president, and after that, I just went to a bit of a wiki warp on forgotten Republican leadership too, from learning about Coolidge. I think I'm going to be looking into Winthrop Murray Crane. I guess he's like the mentor to Calvin Coolidge during his.
Well, that's great. So we started you at PragerU?
Well, I got into PragerU videos when I was actually looking up Adam Carolla back in 2014, right around there, and yeah.
I love it. I love the way people find us. He found us through Adam Carolla. I got to tell Adam. Well, I'm honored to say he listens to the show. Adam, did you hear that? That is great. So have I brought anybody to Adam Carolla? I mean, I don't want to feel guilty here. No, more than one. Sean, having him here, it's taxing. It is just taxing. He even parked in my parking spot today. It's like there's no end to the dirty tricks he plays on me. Anyway, I thank you for that. Where is Rome, New York? I've heard of it, but I don't remember where it is. Look at that. A Slovak is calling in. I love that. Is that true? Joseph in Cerritos, California. Are you Slovak?
Yes, I was born in Slovakia. I'm an American now, but I was born in Slovakia.
What city?
Well, it's not far from Levice. I was born on a little village, 80 kilometers north of Budapest.
Oh, God. Probably passed through it.
Well, you've been to Levice. I know you've been to Bratislava.
Yes, and I was in, is it Taverno? What is it called? What is the name?
Brno, Zvolen.
Anyway, listen, that's the beauty of having a large audience. You know, I would say most Slovaks in Cerritos listen to this show.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And I know so many people who are resistant to the vaccine. It's just a fact of life. And there are people in all walks of life, white people, black people, Hispanic people, members of the military, the healthcare profession. You know how many nurses, and dare I say doctors, physicians' assistants, unwilling to get the vaccine? It's more than a little. So what do we do with them? What do we do with those people? In fact, that's been one of the most unreported stories of the whole crisis of this pandemic. Healthcare workers who are unvaccinated.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins in bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Grovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust him. He is a good and very knowledgeable man. Call Nick at 800-221-7694, 800-221-7694, AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. Not one mistake.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Well, according to the CDC's own documents, right here, Barnstable, or is it Barnstable? Whatever. County, Massachusetts. Outbreak. In all bold. No difference in mean CT values in unvaccinated and vaccinated cases. In fact, the vaccinated cases were 0.4% higher. That's the CDC's own data. That vaccinated Americans in Massachusetts, I'm just reading from the document, in Barnstable County, that the median among vaccinated was N equals 80. I'm not sure what that value represents, but 21.9. Unvaccinated, N equals 65, 21.5. I'm guessing that's how many people they were testing. I need to go look at what the values represent. It says here that risk of infection, reinfection with the Delta variant may be higher compared to the Alpha variant, but only if prior infection is 180 days earlier. It says this, that the Delta variant may cause more severe disease than the Alpha or the ancestral strains. So they're already going to now mandate indoor mask mandates. And in fact, certain sources that cover the White House very well, including Jack Posobiec, who has been wrong about almost nothing with his sources, say that lockdowns are coming to blue states in the next couple weeks.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I'm Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Democrats have doubled down on radical indoctrination in schools with their embrace of critical race theory. School boards and teachers unions have rushed to implement CRT into their curricula, in some cases while avoiding parental notification. Even as these education leaders refuse to reopen schools to children, they now plan to use their near monopoly on education to push this highly controversial ideology. It's already begun to backfire. Parents have begun demanding answers from school boards and campaigned to unseat their members. Politico reports that even Democratic voters are repelled by these plans, and that the radical efforts have fired up independent and conservative voters. The combination of closures and radical agendas have handed Republicans their best opening in decades. With parents under attack by the education establishment, now is the time to demand comprehensive school choice. The choice between liberty and bureaucratic domination over children is now crystal clear in all demographics and areas. The GOP needs to wake up to this golden opportunity. I'm Ed Morrissey.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
And then suddenly people wake up. I never thought it would get this bad this quickly, but it seems that it has taken the madness. Most Americans, if they can finally focus, they just look up and they say, wait a minute. You're telling me the people burning down buildings aren't doing anything wrong. They're peaceful protesters. In other words, your average American who doesn't have a voice the way you do or I do looks around and says, this has gone too far. Madness has been unleashed on the land. I need to do something for my kids, for my grandkids. I thought freedom was a free ride, and I realize now, nope, I'm going to have to, pick up my gun and go to the front lines. Maybe not literally, but it's a similar thing. You realize that everything you held near and dear is being threatened directly. And when your kids are being threatened,
that's it.
You don't care. You're just going to do whatever it takes.
It's about the kids. You know the instinct. You know what the Lord teaches us about parenting. These parents aren't about to take this. They're not about to allow this to happen in their schools. They may not have seen it because they worked, but I think the combination of having their kids at home during COVID, I think the left's movement, I think the idea somehow that our country was ill-founded, the 1619 Project, this idea that we're racist because we're white, this is something parents are not going to sit back and allow to be propagated. And so it'll take a little time to regain control of these city councils, of these school boards, of these state boards or regions that have allowed our university system to become, right, there's your American universities. Today, they're largely not American and, frankly, not the kind of university anybody would be proud of. I think people are going to take.
I know that music, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dennis Prager, back from Hungary, Slovakia, and Czechia. They're moving from the term Czech Republic, which I don't blame them. Who's going to say I visited the Czech Republic, which I just did? Czechia makes more sense, just like Slovakia. It's not the Slovak Republic. I was there to give lectures and do a great many interviews with media. I told the Romanians that I spoke to about 3 years ago, by the way, 2 of whom drove all the way from Bucharest to Budapest to hear me speak. I spoke the day before Tucker Carlson, by the way. So we saw each other and spoke for a while. For a short while, I didn't want to take him seriously. I did not want to take him away from his fans. It was beautiful to see, actually. I get plenty of comfort in my world. I wanted him to, I really did. I wanted him to see the positive reactions of Hungarians to him, because he's a fighter, like I'm a fighter, and I really respect what he does. Just a reminder, by the way, for those of you who are not aware of this, everyone you agree with and admire, you will disagree with at some point, whether it is Tucker Carlson or me or anybody else, whether it is your wife or your husband. That doesn't matter. It does not make them less wonderful. It is normal to have that. It is the fundamentals that you need to agree on. A particular will be, I think Tucker supported getting out of Afghanistan. I don't. I think most of you support getting out of Afghanistan. I'm 100% opposed to it. Once you're in a place, you stay until it's fixed. If it means staying 50 years, like in Germany and Japan, you stay 50 years. It's comparatively speaking minimal cost to America, at maximal cost to the world, and of course to Afghans. So anyway, it was a fantastic time for my wife and me, and the reactions of these young people at the conference in Budapest was very powerful. Very powerful. We met the 2 young Dutch women, close friends, who have been living in Sweden. They're moving back to Holland. And they basically don't know any other conservative young people. 2 beautiful, brilliant young women. And essentially alone. That's why these conferences are so helpful to them. You say, oh my God, there are more people like me. Every one of you needs that. Every one of you needs to have kindred spirits. When an ideology dominates everything, from late night comedy, which is no longer what it is, to baseball and football, and of course elementary schools, high schools, colleges, the news. you can feel alone. Then you go to one of these conferences. I never feel alone because I obviously, being a public figure, I have so many kindred spirits in my life. And I've always had that. I always knew how important that is. But not everybody has the opportunity to meet so many kindred spirits as a public figure like myself does. So you need to go to something where you will meet them. A conference is an example. A trip that I organize or someone like me organizes is another example. Presumably, you will find it in a house of worship that is conservative. Many houses of worship have been taken over by the left as well, just like late night television. So my wife and I looked at these two women and just, sort of our heart broke that they would be alone with their intelligence and charm and everything else is quite something. By the way, they did know Leon de Winter. He's well known in Holland. They were very touched that he's a good friend of ours. Because you know how it came up? I told them Klopp in the Mole. They couldn't believe that this American knew the saying, hit in the head with a windmill. Which we play for you periodically. So what's going to happen, folks, in the increasing irrationality of our age? I was on an airplane yesterday. I went from Prague to Paris to L.A. So Europe to L.A. is a long flight. It's between 12 and 14 hours. I guess depends on winds and a whole host of factors, how much you spend time on the ground, I guess. Anyway, it's a long trip. I'm used to those, so that doesn't matter to me, but it is a long trip no matter what. So my wife came up with an interesting question, and I tweeted it out. I'm curious to see what the responses are. I tweeted it out just as we were boarding the plane. So everybody on this airplane, every single person, had to have had a COVID test prior to entering the plane. That's what they asked for. I don't think they asked for immunization. They asked, I believe, for COVID test. We took the COVID test 2 hours before the flight. That's about as recent as you can get. The chances of our having picked up COVID in the 2 hours between the COVID center and the gate, they're pretty slim. So why were we told to wear masks? Why would you wear masks if every single person just had a COVID test? Now, to be fair and to be intellectually honest, this was about as non-aggressive a flight crew as I have ever had. I hope I'm not in any way hurting Air France, because I actually am praising Air France, that these people were not uptight about something that makes no sense. Now, in a domestic flight, it's not true. You don't need to have any proof that, you could walk on with diphtheria, theoretically. But I still don't believe masks are relevant in an airplane either, to be perfectly scientific with you. But where everybody was just tested, why would you be pro-mask? The issue is not that masks are a political issue. Masks are a logical issue, an issue of reason. If you think clearly, you know the answer to my question is, it is foolish in the extreme. It is pathetic that people have to wear masks if every one of them has just been tested. It is beyond pathetic. It is actually injurious to children to have them wear it. If your child has to wear masks again after losing a year in school, take them out of that school, have them homeschooled just for the sake of being able to interact with other young people, seeing their faces. I believe the damage, I am as certain as I am of anything in the world, that children are being damaged by having to wear masks and missing school. Compared to the possibility, the remote, unbelievably remote possibility of their getting very sick, let alone dying from COVID, there is no comparison of the damage done by health authorities to children in this country. There's nothing more shameful at this time in the medical world than the medical profession. I don't mean your doctor. Your doctor may be a saint. The AMA is a fraud. The CDC is, the NIH is. These places are frauds. They're run by fools. What was that I just saw by, what is her name? Rachel Walensky? What is her first name? Yeah, I gotta look it up. I just saw a thing that proves the foolishness of this woman, and she is directing policy. Masks. Wait till we come back and I give you the difference in COVID statistics between Israelis and Palestinians. You will find that most eye-opening.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And he says, if you want to convince people to get a vaccine, writes Matt Taibbi, pretty much the worst way to go about it is a massive blame campaign delivered by sneering blue noses who have a richly deserved credibility problem with large chunks of the population and now insist they're owed financially besides. Matt Taibbi says, I'm vaccinated. I think people should be vaccinated. But the latest moral mania we're witnessing, and make no mistake about it, he writes, the pandemic of the unvaccinated PR campaign is the latest in a ceaseless series of such manias dating back to late 2016, lays bare everything that's abhorrent and nonsensical in modern American politics. Isn't that, I think that's such a smart reaction. In fact, those panelists on the Five yesterday were very wisely pointing out, Greg Gutfeld said to Geraldo, if you're trying to be persuasive, buddy, it ain't working. It ain't working. 800-655-Mike. Let's just see how persuasive Geraldo Rivera was. Here's Chris on line one. Hey, Chris, did Geraldo help you make up your mind about the vaccine?
Totally. Now I'm really pissed off because my sister is a state worker and she doesn't want to get the vaccine, but she has to do it. So I was going to basically get it to help her move on, okay? But after hearing him, I'm not going to do it.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
It's time for the fearless. There's no time for the meek. This is America's moment. What's taking place in our schools, the crime in our cities, all of these things that we can see unraveling this most exceptional nation. It's time for the real believers and the real conservatives to step forward and be absolutely fearless in doing so.
But I think a lot of Americans have woken up, and so we don't even know what is going on the grassroots level because you can't keep track of everything. But I think people are rising up, and they're looking for folks like you and the handful of others in Congress, and they're saying we can no longer do business as usual. But I mean, 10 years ago, you were not thinking like this.
No, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. And by the way, I can give you 2 data points from the last 48 hours. I was in southwest Missouri at the Ashcroft family farm. It was a picnic outdoor. Poured rain right about an hour before the picnic. Nobody left. They left. They gave me a chance. They gave former Attorney General Ashcroft a chance to talk about the Bible and the America and what we were all going to go do. These people were on fire to take back. And I had people come up and say, I never thought I'd run for city council, and I'm going to do it. And I had a couple law enforcement who said, I didn't have any interest in actually being the sheriff, but our sheriff won't enforce the rules. I'm going to go do that. No, this is different. I was in Iowa at an event that was very similar to that. And people just People are engaged in their civic life, in their churches, in their community in ways that I have not seen. I've been at this now 9-10 years from the time I first lost my mind and ran for Congress when Obama was the president and we had to throw Nancy out the last time. Who'd have believed we'd have to throw her out of speakership again? But here we are, and this is a moment where our people are being tested, they're being challenged, and my observation is people are rising to that challenge.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk.
Hi, everybody. I want to remind you about Sierra Pacific Mortgage, specifically Andrew and Todd, two terrific guys that have been with me from the first day of lockdown. I so admired them then. I was surprised they were still doing business. They haven't missed a beat. They're competent, they're hardworking, and they're easy to work with. If you have any interest with regard to a refi, a new purchase, a cash-out refi, a reverse mortgage, the rates are incredible today. You don't know how long that will be. And look, they're going to have to go up. I mean, just because of the cheapening of the dollar, they're just going to go up. So it's only a matter of time. And I personally recommend Andrew and Todd. AndrewandTodd.com with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. 888-888-1172. 888-888-1172. Which do you prefer, folks? 888-888 or 888-888? Let's take a vote here. What do you say, Living Martyr? 888 as well? That's what I think. I started Triple, by the way. I picked it up in Australia many years ago, and I've always done it. It's a much easier way to remember letters or numbers. 888-888-1172, AndrewandTodd.com. My name is Dennis Prager. I am very, very, very refreshed from time with my wife in Eastern Europe. Isn't it luck or serendipity or I don't know that I specialized in Eastern Europe? Is that who did? Nobody did. How many Americans can name all the countries in Eastern Europe from Poland to Bulgaria? It's like have them name the 10 provinces of Canada. They don't even know there were 10 provinces. I'm not blaming. This is not I'm better than you. It's just it's an unknown area, and I found it fascinating because of my study of communism. And my sad report to you is I felt freer in Hungary than I do in this country. When I first went to Hungary, it was communist. If you'd have told me that decades later I would say something like that, I would have thought you're out of your mind. See, Hungary didn't turn communist because Hungarians like despicable ideas. Turned communist because the Soviets imposed it on them. But nobody's imposing communism on us. And look at how many Americans are embracing it. How many young people think socialism is the wave of the future? It's wonderful. Black Lives Matter announced that the demonstrations against the communist scum that run the country in Cuba and have since 1959 are a result of America. Get it? Not because communism is evil. By the way, here's a rule of life that I've mentioned to you often. When you don't call evil evil, you will call good evil. The same people who couldn't call communism evil call America evil. It's a rule of life. Those who are kind to the evil will be evil to the kind. A very interesting report out of Israel. Two countries that share an identical climate and whose populations are intertwined with each other.
They're not two countries.
Well, that's the way the article says it. They're not two countries. Okay, fine. That's one country and one territory. Okay. I'm actually happy that they said it, so people will know this is not a pro-Israel or anti-Israel article. This is just about COVID. It's not about Israel or the Palestinians. Disregard any political or social conflicts between Israel and the Palestinians. The writer writes, I'm strictly focusing on their experimental COVID-19 vaccine rollouts. Let's compare the percentage of fully vaccinated individuals. Israel, 60% of total population, about 8.8 million, fully vaccinated. Palestinians, 9.9% of total population, around 5 million, fully vaccinated. Get that? 60% to 9%. Get it? You with me? Great. According to the pandemic of the unvaccinated theory, Palestinians should see more COVID-19 cases and deaths, right? Because it's the non-vaccinated who are getting sick. That's what we're told by the liars in America. Populations are intertwined, yet highly vaccinated Israelis are witnessing a dramatic rise in cases. And in the mostly unvaccinated Palestinian territories, they continue to see a gradual decline in cases. How's that possible? They live in the exact same geographical area. Here's where Israel and Palestine rank on COVID-19 deaths and cases per capita, according to Worldometer, or Worldometer, which is what I've been using from the beginning. COVID-19 deaths, Israel 77, Palestine 79, no statistical difference. COVID-19 cases, Israel 25, Palestine 70. Israel has significantly more COVID-19 cases per capita compared to Palestinians. But if this was a pandemic of the unvaccinated, wouldn't Palestinians get sick more often and require more testing? So then the Epoch Times reports, an Israeli doctor said the majority of COVID-19 patients hospitalized at his hospital are fully vaccinated. Now, to be fair, it's because most Israelis are fully vaccinated. So, therefore, this, by the way, I'm going to make a personally important statement. Truth is more important to me than any point that I'll ever make. So I am defending the defenders of the vaccine when I say, of course, more vaccinated will be sick because there are so many more vaccinated. Having said that, however, we were told that the vaccine will work. Let's be honest about that. Talking with Channel 13 TV News on August 5th, Dr. Kobi Haviv, medical director of the Herzog Hospital in Jerusalem, said 85 to 90% of the hospitalizations are in fully vaccinated people. Well, that is higher than the proportion of Israelis vaccinated. I don't think 85 to 90% of Israelis are vaccinated. 95% of the severe patients are vaccinated. Herzog Hospital specializes in nursing care for the elderly. Data from the Israeli Minister of Health in July suggested the effectiveness of the Pfizer vaccine in preventing infection and symptomatic illness had dropped from 90% to only 39%. However, the levels of protection against severe illness and hospitalization remained high. Okay. Look, there's a vast amount we don't know about this, and people should just be humble about it before forcing people out of normal life. Back in a moment.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And I know so many people who are resistant to the vaccine. It's just a fact of life. And there are people in all walks of life, white people, black people, Hispanic people, members of the military, the healthcare profession. You know how many nurses, and dare I say doctors, physician's assistants unwilling to get the vaccine? It's more than a little. So what do we do with them? What do we do with those people? In fact, that's been one of the most unreported stories of the whole crisis of this pandemic. Healthcare workers who are unvaccinated.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins and bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Rovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust him. He is a good and very knowledgeable man. Call Nick at 800-221-7694, 800-221-7694, AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. Not one mistake.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Well, according to the CDC's own documents, right here, Barnstable, or is it Barnstable? Whatever. County, Massachusetts. Outbreak. In all bold. No difference in mean CT values in unvaccinated and vaccinated cases. In fact, the vaccinated cases were 0.4% higher. That's the CDC's own data. That vaccinated Americans in Massachusetts, I'm just reading from the document, in Barnstable County, that the median among vaccinated was N equals 80. I'm not sure what that value represents, but 21.9. Unvaccinated, N equals 65, 21.5. I'm guessing that's how many people they were testing. I need to go look at what the values represent. It says here that risk of infection, reinfection with the Delta variant may be higher compared to the Alpha variant, but only if prior infection is 180 days earlier. It says this, that the Delta variant may cause more severe disease than the Alpha or the ancestral strains. So they're already going to now mandate indoor mask mandate.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I'm looking at a picture of the true fool who was the governor of Oregon. And there are more fools than non-fools in the world. It's always been that way. A woman named Kate Brown signing a law to allow Oregon students to graduate high school without proving they can write or do math. That's from the Oregonian, the liberal paper.
And work together because we all have a
So I noticed that there were young people around her as she's signing the law. And
She's not. I don't think she's.
that not a different law. Yeah, signing a different law, correct. Because they didn't want this one publicized. This is from March 2020.
But you got, I mean, just put yourself in his position.
This was a ceremonial bill signing. Okay, fine. So there were young people around her, and they're all wearing a T-shirt. The T-shirt says, "I will be," and then you write in the age, "when my climate fate is sealed." So I see one says 27, one says 28, and I can't read the others. These brainwashed kids don't understand that 50 years ago, they were telling them that they had no future. The people 50 years ago who wrote this are today 70. Right? Who would have written 50 years ago, "I will be 28 when my climate fate is sealed." The make-believe worlds in which kids live, there are no men and women, non-binary sex, men give birth, America is systemically racist, slavery was a uniquely American problem, the Revolutionary War was fought in order to preserve slavery. They live in a gigantic world of combination of idiocy and lies. Then we wonder why the depression and suicide rates among young people are so high. I'm sure they were wearing masks. We don't see that. We only see their bodies in T-shirts around Governor Kate Brown. What a statement about Oregonians that she was elected. However, it is a statement about Californians that Gavin Newsom was elected. Or our senators. So it is, and it is a statement. I live among many, many, many foolish people. Foolish is a bad thing, by the way. I just want you to know foolish is a really, really, really bad thing. It's one notch above evil. It isn't evil, but it leads to evil. I don't know if you know, but I am just finishing. I took a break from my Bible commentary, the Rational Bible, to write the Rational Passover Haggadah. The Haggadah is the Passover Seder service liturgy. Many non-Jews are starting, Christians specifically, are starting to have their own Seders, and this will be a guide for both Jews and non-Jews. So there's a very famous episode in the Passover service. It's thousands of years old. It is about how you talk to different types of children about the Exodus. That's the purpose of the meal, is to tell people about God taking the Israelites out of Egypt 3,000 years ago. And it speaks about a bad son, a wise son, a son who does not know how to ask questions, and a simple son. Those are the names of the four sons. I remember as a kid thinking, where's the good son? If there's a bad son, why isn't there a good son? I'll tell you why. Brilliant insight. Goodness is worthless without wisdom. That's why. So when I say someone is a fool, that's a real big indictment. Big. But it takes effort to become wise. You're not born wise. I think even people on the left would acknowledge that. You're not born wise, although they do believe there's a lot of wisdom to be learned from young people. That's they would believe that because they haven't gotten any wiser since they were young. What's our story, gentlemen? It is indeed. Guess what? I took my wife. I can't even say I took her. I went with my wife. It's funny. I took my wife. I took Relief Factor with me. And I'll tell you, when you sit on an airplane for 14 hours, it's a good thing to have Relief Factor. It's such a fantastic product. And they're so honest that they tell you the following: if it doesn't work within 3 weeks, for your muscle or joint pain, it probably won't work. So they give you a 3-week price of $19.95 plus shipping. Doesn't work, cancel the order. You lost $20. You think it's worth a $20 try? I promise you it is worth it. Go to relieffactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I mean, if you're going to censor yourself in deference to that power that's above you, that's telling you what you can and can't say, then you are the joke. You're not making jokes. You are the joke. Comedians, in our situation, what we look at is what we're doing. We're often accused, we're lately have been accused of punching down. We're punching back. We're not punching down. This is a situation where conservatives are literally on the ropes in the culture battle.
Yeah.
And they're defending themselves against this top-down attack, this top-down tyranny from progressive ideology that's coming from celebrities, it's coming from corporations, it's coming from politicians.
Yeah.
We're not punching down. We're punching back at that stuff.
So how big has the Babylon Bee? Like, it's grown dramatically, but give us some numbers so we have a sense of where you've come from in the last 4 years.
Well, so in the last 4 years, I mean, we've crossed the 1 million follower threshold on most of our social media.
You know what?
So.
I believe I was the 1 million follower.
Were you?
And don't I get something?
You get something. You get like a million. What is the currency in Venezuela? What's it called?
Zloty? No, that's another country.
Yeah. It's worth almost nothing. I think you get 30 cents.
But you know what? That's better than nothing. It's almost nothing, but it's not nothing. 1 million followers.
A million followers on Twitter, a million followers on Instagram, 1 million followers on Facebook. We're
on all these platforms?
Yeah, on each of them. Yeah, on each of them.
But here's the thing. That million is worth more than the normal million. What I mean is, anybody who appreciates the humor of the Babylon Bee has to be sophisticated, because it is brilliant humor. It's not broad. It's not stupid humor. It's brilliant humor. You have to be aware of who you're making fun of and whatever. The funniest thing
sometimes we go for the low-hanging dumb jokes.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This insane reversal. We've been told by Biden, by Fauci, if you're vaccinated, you don't need a mask. Now you do, perhaps for the rest of eternity. That this decision is based apparently on an unpublished, unpeer-reviewed publication from India about a vaccine that you can't even get here in America.
And it's actually even better than that, because they didn't even understand the study, because in the CDC slide deck, they refer to it as a study in healthcare professionals, when in fact it was a
That helps. It's amazing. Maybe what you forget, there's a lever to turn your mic on. How would I remember that after a week away? All right? I'm thinking about Hungarian. That's enough to blow your mind. No, I don't have it. Yes, here we go. Let me take some calls. I've been talking a great deal because I had a lot to say. Tom in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hello, Tom.
How you doing today, Dennis?
Great.
Good. Just that study they did with the Israelis and Palestinians, it's really hard to trust the numbers coming out of Palestine. I don't know how well, how many tests they do there on a daily basis, and you really have to factor that in. Like North Korea claims that there's no deaths from COVID. I don't believe that. Do you?
No, I don't believe it, although it is an interesting thing given that the place is hermetically sealed. I don't believe it. That's correct. I don't believe it any more than there were no gays in Iran. Remember that one?
Yes, I do.
That was a great one.
Understand
The reason that I believe this, though, is these are Israelis who were citing these statistics. And if anything, the Palestinians, if they're going to lie, would rather lie in the other direction. They rather tell you how terrible it is because the Israelis don't inoculate them enough. It's in their interest to exaggerate how bad it is for Palestinians, not how good it is. So that's the reason I believe these statistics. All right. Appreciate your call, obviously. Fort Myers, Florida, and Barry. Hello, Barry.
Hi, Dennis. You're one of the smartest men on radio. First time I'm calling you.
Wow. Thank you on both. Yes.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But your idea about staying in Afghanistan, I'm so opposed to that. I don't think it's worth an American boy to stay there when, after 20 years, their military, with our equipment, hasn't developed into a phenomenal military that could have taken on the Taliban. And more than that, sometimes you have to know when to fold them. Even a bank knows when to give up on a loan or whatever. I don't think we have the stomach to fight the way we would have to fight to really win that. And if we can't win it, why are we there?
Okay, so I actually wrote a piece on this a few weeks ago. I commend it to your attention, since you do respect me. And I answered every one of those arguments. We lose extremely few. Every death is a tragedy, but you don't make decisions based on every death. This is the great COVID mistake. Telling me the number of people in their 90s and 80s with comorbidities dying is not a convincing argument to ruin the lives of an entire society of young people. And I'm saying this as, well, I'm not in my 80s or 90s, and I'm saying it as certainly not as a young person. But one has to ask what is fair and what is good. So I know that the numbers, I wrote them in my column, I don't remember them by heart, but the numbers of Americans being killed in Afghanistan are very, very small. And the amount of slaughter taking place when we leave will be very, very big. And I treasure Afghan lives. Now, I'm not saying we should enter Afghanistan if we had not been there, but we were there. And leaving will cause not only horrors beyond belief to Afghans, especially to the women there and girls there, but to America's reputation. If America doesn't win in X number of years, they leave you. Why would that build any confidence in anybody trusting their lives? And that's what they do if they support America in their country. We haven't left Germany and we haven't left Japan. You don't lose till you quit. That's the way it is. I don't like America losing, not because of ego, not because of chauvinism, but because if America loses wars, it's a bad thing for the world. It is a bad thing for everything that we stand for. The price of staying is less than the price of leaving. That's my take. You're a good man. I appreciate your calling me. And John in Canoga Park, California. Hello.
Hello, Dennis. Religion on the Line is the best show on the radio.
It was phenomenal. I loved it. I was on for exactly 10 years, August 82 to August 92. That's where I began radio.
The reason I'm calling is I'm just going nuts with all these PSAs talking about COVID vaccines and treatment.
You're breaking up, my friend. No, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. You broke up.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, but
sorry.
Let's hope you don't break up.
Okay, I'll stand still. Yeah, there's always been treatments for COVID from the beginning. and it's mentioned occasionally, but it's never discussed or talked about.
Do you mean ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and zinc?
And there's a few others too. And I think this is the story. It's like the vaccine is a shiny object.
My friend, it is a disgrace to the American medical world that it has not looked into therapeutics and only vaccines. It is a disgrace. It has turned me around in my views of the American Medical Association and the American medical establishment. They're corrupt. The American Medical Association is now just another left-wing, woke, anti-science, anti-American organization. It has now come out with the announcement, this is the American Medical Association, that when children are born and given a birth certificate, sex should not be listed. This is the American Medical Association, now referring to those who give birth as birthing persons, not women. The American Medical Association.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We have vaccine mandates for federal workers. Nancy Pelosi says masks are back. You're going to be arrested if you don't wear them in Congress. When is this going to end, Phil?
You know, it's I don't know when it's going to end. We've got the masks are mandatory again in Washington, D.C. As of 5 a.m. Tomorrow morning, which is very interesting because it's been 13 days since the District of Columbia last reported a death with COVID. We've had 11 homicides in the last 13 days,
yep.
But 0 deaths with COVID. And,
maybe they should ban homicides, Phil.
Yeah, right. Well, or at least maybe have a little bit more vigorous enforcement of the existing laws against them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And I know so many people who are resistant to the vaccine. It's just a fact of life. And there are people in all walks of life, white people, black people, Hispanic people, members of the military, the healthcare profession. You know how many nurses, and dare I say doctors, physician's assistants, unwilling to get the vaccine? It's more than a little. So what do we do with them? What do we do with those people? In fact, that's been one of the most unreported stories of the whole crisis of this pandemic. Healthcare workers who are unvaccinated.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins and bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Rovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust. Well, my friends, Dennis Prager here, final segment of my return home Yesterday at this time I was on a plane, Prague, Paris, L.A. Just a big general thought that I'll try to summarize a couple of calls. In my late teens, I made a goal in my life to see as many places on Earth as I could while I was alive, which is redundant. I'm not going to see them when I'm dead. But that was what I wished for. Slovakia was 131, I think. I still have Macedonia left in Europe. That's it. A lot of European countries. People don't realize how many countries there are in Europe. And saying to my wife, as we did, my favorite thing in the world is rent a car and travel in other countries. It really, I literally think I'm feeling endorphins. The joy of driving, the freedom of the car. And I just said so often to her, the thrill of travel is as great today as it was when I was 20. I know because I'm the same me. I know me at 20 and I know me today. It's a pain. I mean, packing, especially now with COVID, testing, this, that, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Travel. Meeting people in other places, in their places. It really doesn't get much better. However, there was a downside. Coming back to America for the first time in my life, I didn't think I was coming to the beacon of liberty. Because I'm not. The left ruined Eastern Europe between 45 and 91. And it is ruining the United States. There's hope, says JR in Arlington, Ohio. Parents have had enough. Revolt is brewing. It does seem that it's beginning. If they want your children masked, it means they don't give a damn about your children. Of course they claim they do. Does anybody who has hurt any group in history say they want to hurt the group? It's very, very rare. Very rare. They're scared human beings trying to make scared people. Don't let them.